Hi there, this is Francis Turner from ThreatSTOP. I'm a security researcher involved in identifying elements that are sanctions to do with sanctions compliance and sanctions violations. And so one of the questions that we've been asked a lot, and it's a very simple one, it sounds pretty simple, is what countries are subject to OFAC sanctions and who are on the OFAC sanctions? Well, as I said in one of my other videos, you can go to the OFAC website on ofac.treasury.gov and go find the list, but that's confusing. OFAC doesn't specifically sanction countries for the most part. It does sanction a couple, like effectively you can't do business with Iran or North Korea or Cuba, and there's a few others that are like Sudan, for example, that basically the entire country, they consider there's no real reason why anyone that's to do with the US should do any business with them. So therefore, basically it's blocked unless you have a very specific reason. Not typically, and this particularly applies, of course, to Cuba and North Korea. These countries are communist. They don't have any private enterprise. Everything is controlled by the government. And since the government has been sanctioned, basically everything in that country has been sanctioned. Then you have countries like Russia, where, well, the Russian government has been sanctioned and certain Russian individuals have been sanctioned, but there are potentially other parts of Russia and Russian-related people, Russian-related organizations that are not sanctioned. However, a lot of the time, people will say, well, it's much easier to not do business with Russia full stop than to try and work out which part of the Russian industrial complex or whatever food exporting, whatever it is, exporting business that you might want to do business with is actually under sanctions control or not. And so therefore we block the whole of Russia. But there are also Russian related entities that are sanctioned that have subsidiaries outside Russia. And that's where it gets complicated. As I say, you can go look at the OFAC website and go download the SDN list, which is a specifically designated nationals list, and see who is on that list, who they are. You'll see, for example, that there are certain individuals, there are certain banks. If you go to, say, they will say things like the following individuals who are added to OFAC's SDN list: Anokin, Vasily, somebody or other, Cherakov, somebody, Svetek, Ivan, Serbia, and all sorts of other, there will be all sorts of people like that. And then they'll have things like, AEM Propulsion and some location in St. Petersburg. They will have, AK Systems in Moscow and so on, which are added specific to the list. Now, some of these are just in Russia, and so it's really straightforward. It's the same thing. So, if you're blocking Russia and you're not talking to anything in Russia, then you're safe. But on the other hand, you've got companies like Gazprom. Now, Gazprom is an enormous company which had, at least prior to February 2022, subsidiaries in Germany, probably other parts of Europe, Kyrgyzstan, other parts of the former Soviet Union, and probably other places that I haven't paid attention to too much that, it had subsidiaries in. Now, some of those subsidiaries were nationalized as part of this, like I believe the Germans effectively nationalized Gazprom in Germany, but others are still trading and are still sanctioned, and you would therefore not be allowed to do business with them without special permission for the US government and so on. So that's effectively the sorts of people that are sanctioned by OFAC. As I say, it's complicated because you've got both individuals, and some of those individuals are extremely rich. So they're billionaires, they're so-called oligarchs. And the oligarchs typically have, many subsidiaries, companies that are owned by them. I mean, famously in the UK, Chelsea Football Club was owned by Abramovich, who was sanctioned in February last year. Now, for various reasons, Chelsea Football Club managed to sort of change its ownership so that he was no longer the owner, and therefore they're not sanctioned. But there was a time when, at least theoretically, any football organization that was doing, playing games against Chelsea was potentially violating OFAC sanctions on Mr. Abramovich. So that's sanctions. They're complicated this way. And one of the things that we do at ThreatSTOP is try and make it simple for you by identifying these organizations and controlled organizations of sanctioned individuals so that you don't talk to them by mistake.